Welcome back, and thanks for being with us here at Live Now from Fox as we take a look again at the White House over in Washington, D.C. I want to stay on this topic, though. It has been 1 year today since the attempted assassination of President Trump at an outdoor rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Live Now from Fox was there with you, live streaming the entire scenario and also bringing you everything that came after that, including extensive investigations into what went wrong on that weekend rally. And we're going to cover another angle here. I want to talk about Secret Service security, some of the changes that have been made since then, but really, again, what went wrong that day. So to do that, joining us now onto the program is Bobby McDonald. He is a former Secret Service agent. Bobby, good to see you.
Good morning, Carol. Good to see you.
All right, let's go back to this day. So President Trump is then a candidate trying to get back into the Oval Office, but he has been a president before. So clearly, security is different when trying to protect him. Tell me about how that security is put in place for a rally that's going to be held outside in front of hundreds of people.
Well, a very difficult assignment for those folks. Let's put that on the record first, but that's our job. That's what we do every day. The Secret Service goes out and puts together a robust security plan for its protectees, whether it's in the White House, whether it's in a stadium, whether it's on a motorcade route, whether it's at a county fair. Those things have to be put in place. The Secret Service has practices, policies, and methodologies that, although they didn't work on July 13th, have been tried and proven to work over the years that we've had protection in our line. We have to make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's. We start at the very center of the event and work our way out. And that's where the main problem came in on July 13th. The main problem of not recognizing the importance of that rooftop at that building at the Butler site. We also had the issue of communication problems. The problems with communications were really not with any types of mechanics. It was with the people that weren't talking. And that's the main problem here. We have to make sure that the communication and the complacency, in my opinion, I hate to say that took place on July 13th in Butler doesn't ever happen again.
The breakdown in communication between several agencies is something that was really at the forefront with that entire investigation. Bobby, I want to go back to some of the footage and the clip that we have from that day. Walk us through this. Tell me, is this exactly how the response is supposed to go? So we're seeing the president here, he's speaking, he's looking to the right, looking at a chart, I believe, and then all of a sudden, this goes down. Secret Service agents swarm. Walk us through this entire initiative here and how, the agents responded during this time.
Well, let's break it down into two components. The first component is the protective advance. Those are the agents that were on the ground for a week ahead of time, putting together the apparatus of security, making the contacts with the local police department, testing the communication assets and things of that nature. Then let's look at the response of the shift, which is what you're seeing right now. The shift responded very, very properly and very, very in accordance with the training and the methods and practices of the Secret Service. The idea here is that once the gunshot is heard or the attack is made, they envelop on the former president, make what we call a body bunker to then protect him from any further shots. Those agents reacted, in my opinion, very appropriately. I know they've taken some criticism for not getting him off that stage quick enough or things of that nature. Look, when gunshots are moving around, when chaos is erupting. You also had Mr. Compatore there who lost his life. Those issues are going on. When a lot of things are happening, things don't always go according to script. So would it have been beneficial to get the president off that stage a little bit quicker? Yes, but I don't think that the agents there did anything wrong with respect to not moving in a protective fashion that we trained for. So I think overall, the shift agents who were around and on his detail did a pretty good job and reacted appropriately.
We just learned earlier this week that 6 Secret Service agents, they have been suspended after this entire situation happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now, this happening a year ago. Bobby, why does it take so long to take action? Why a year? How much more do we have to learn at this point? Why is this process a bit slow going?
One of the unfortunate parts of government work is that the government moves at a snail's pace. The investigation took place, the due process of that investigation took place, the punishments were meted out, they were probably automatically appealed, which then I believe they were reduced to the largest being 45 days, the smallest being 10 days. It certainly isn't a very good look for the Secret Service that suspensions were the only punishment that were put together here. Again, the Secret Service has made a decision here that this is the proper punishment to not let anybody go from employment. I don't think you're probably going to see some of those agents working protection assignments in the near future. There's also some reporting that a couple of those agents were promoted. Well, that's not a good look either for something that happened just a year ago today. So the Secret Service is continuing to work hard and do its job every day. It needs to continue with its transparency, and it needs to figure out how to right itself, get itself back on the tracks, and figure out how to move forward here in a productive fashion.
Just before we brought you onto the program, we had Rich Rubino on, who is a political historian, and he was bringing up some moments throughout American history that compare to the attempted assassination of President Trump. Before we talk about some of the changes that came when it comes to security, given this specific situation, walk us through the changes that the Secret Service has taken over the last several decades when it comes to protecting these high political figures.
Sure. Let's start with the Kennedy assassination. You don't see open air limousines anymore. Then we can move into the Ford assassination attempts in San Francisco, where you will always see the presidential limousine door remain open for a while after the president gets out, or it will be open before he comes off the plane. That's to get the president immediately into the limousine should there be some issues. In San Francisco, the locks kept recycling on the limousine and we couldn't get the door open. Then we move into the Reagan assassination attempt in 1981. That began a couple of different things. We don't arrive at the front door of hotels anymore. Our protectees have seen every loading dock in America. That's normally where we arrive now. That also brought in the implementation of metal detectors at all events for major protectees. That also allowed for what we call the press agent to spend some time with a presidential visit press corps so that that agent can make sure that the press corps, once swept, doesn't allow anybody who shouldn't be with them, like John Hinckley was able to get into at the Washington Hilton. So everything that the Secret Service does today is based upon things that have happened in the past.
All right, and let's take it a little bit more recent here. 1 year after this attempted assassination with President Trump, again, a lot of things were learned based off that rally that was held outdoors in Butler, Pennsylvania. What are some of the immediate changes that were implemented, and also how have they evolved throughout this last year?
Well, I think the supervision process had to be tightened up a little bit, obviously, and having been what we call a second supervisor on on the vice presidential detail, that's a supervisor who comes in the day before the visit and walks the entire venue, walks all of the venues of the visit, meets with the agents, goes over the plan. What are we going to do if this happens? What are we going to do if that happens? That rooftop should have been picked up not only by the agents doing the advance, but by the second supervisor to say, hey, how is that roof going to be covered? And if we don't have it covered, we need to get it covered. It's very easy for agencies to blame other agencies that, hey, Butler PD officer was supposed to be on that roof. Well, it's the Secret Service's job to make sure that all those vulnerable areas are covered. I think you're also going to see some new protective assets that are going to be developed, whether it's in drones. I believe the service has developed or has purchased some mobile command posts, which are going to go to various venues. That's nice. The assets are terrific, but they have to be worked properly and used properly, by the agents in order for them to work properly. It's nice to have new things, new toys, new stuff, but the agents have to go out there every day and do the job with those assets to make sure that we're getting a very robust protective platform for our protectees.
With these agents having such an important job here protecting the president of the United States, Bobby, would you be able to walk us through some of the training that they go through and how long it takes them to get to the status of being there next to the president day in and day out for his protection?
Well, the application process takes anywhere from 8 months to a year. The agents then go through training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. They then go through some computer training in Alabama and then come back to D.C. for 17 weeks of special agent training with the Secret Service specific at our training facility in Beltsville, Maryland. Agents will then go to a field office for a protracted period of time where they will do investigations. And during that time, they will support the protective details. Then we'll move to a protective assignment in DC or intelligence division or a former president's detail, do their protection time for 5 to 7 years. And then we'll either move through the ranks in supervisory positions or we'll return to the field to do investigations and perhaps a supervisory position in the field. Agents on a protective detail, for example, the president's detail, work 2 weeks on midnights, 2 weeks on days, 2 weeks on afternoons, and then 2 weeks of training. So 2 out of every 8 weeks, agents are going through some type of specific retread training, if you will, to continue to practice our different methodologies, to get muscle memory on how to react to gunshots, to be proficient with their weapon and their tools, to practice their driving. All of those things go on all the time. So it isn't that if you're not working today, you're sitting around doing nothing. You're out doing dynamic training, or you're traveling all over the world developing protective advances for your protectee.
Bobby, I want to put up a post here on X, courtesy of the New York Post, which they say that top Secret Service officials were aware of, quote, classified threat 10 days before Butler assassination attempt and failed to tell agents, law enforcement guarding Trump. This goes back to that breakdown in communication, which has been top of mind throughout the investigation. But how do Secret Service officials kind of become aware of these threats? What is the chain that it goes through to make sure that it is a credible threat?
Yeah, this is a very disappointing statement here. And when I heard it yesterday, it's very troubling. Look, the agents who are on the ground doing the work rely on not only liaison with local police and police departments, they rely on intelligence from various agencies, to include the Secret Service, to include the FBI, to include the CIA. All of those agencies, again, after 9/11, have been tasked with working together. We really didn't work together before 9/11. That was one of the problems there. We've come a long way in the last 24 years, but you know, to hear that information wasn't passed to where it needed to be passed to. Information's nice, but if you can't get it to the customer who needs it, it really doesn't do you any good. So very troubling that somewhere in this chain here, information didn't get to where it needs to get to. I think that needs to be investigated, and we need to figure out why that happened, how it happened, who was involved, and we need to make sure that that certainly doesn't happen moving forward.
And that investigation is still ongoing even a year later. Bobby, we really appreciate all of the insight and kind of the background that you've been able to give, specifically with this angle and security for the president and even presidential candidates. Is there anything that you feel maybe people haven't talked about enough, specifically having to do with Secret Service, their tasks with this security, and also what happened in Butler a year ago?
Well, this was a very difficult day for the Secret Service, obviously for President Trump sustaining that injury. It was very difficult for the agents that were around his detail. Also very difficult for the agents who didn't perform very well that day. But we also have to make sure that we don't forget Mr. Compatore, who lost his life that day based upon the actions of the agents there, not putting in a good protective plan. So we can't forget him and the other two individuals who were shot. The Secret Service works hard every day. Terrific people there who go out and work hard. They're away from their families, nights, weekends, holidays, missing anniversaries, and things of that nature. They go out and work hard every day. They need to continue to go out and work hard every day. Make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and give the protectees of the Secret Service the very best protective apparatus that they can put together.
And of course, important to remember that even though the president did get out alive, it was a deadly shooting that went down there in Butler. Bobby McDonald, a former Secret Service agent, we appreciate your time here at Live Now from Fox. Thank you for joining. We'll talk soon.
Terrell, good to be with you. Thank you.
Of course, you have a good rest of your day.